Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Today is the last live broadcast of Another View for the year 2024. And what a year it has been. So much turmoil, strife, division. Yet in the midst of all that, we also had hope, help, and healing. So for this last show of this year, we're going beautiful and peaceful with the story of Dee Hall, an urban Black flower farmer. Hear her inspiring story and maybe learn a thing or two about the magic of gardens. Another View, that's coming up next, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Flowers. When you say the word, you cannot help but smile. Who doesn't love to receive flowers? But have you ever thought about where the flowers in your beautiful bouquet come from? Dee Hall did when she was planning her wedding. Well, I'll let her tell the story. Please welcome Dee Hall, a Black urban flower farmer and owner of Mermaid City Flowers. Hey, Dee, how are you?
Good. How are you, Barbara?
Great. So tell us, you were preparing to get married. You were looking for flowers. What happened?
So I wanted locally grown flowers. I'd always had a garden, and I knew that I wanted local flowers for my wedding, and I could not find anyone here who grew them to the scale that I needed. And so I said, well, I could do this. And then I said, well, I could take it to market. And I kept going, and nobody said, please don't do this. This is a terrible idea. So it kind of just developed organically from there. And that's how I got started.
And you started literally in your front yard.
I did. So we had some diseased trees removed, and my next door neighbor was like, hey, are you going to expand your garden now? This is the time. And I was like, yeah. So I originally started out with a small pollinator garden because I moved from Virginia Beach, and I knew there were insects and birds, etc., that I'd seen when I lived in the beach that I wasn't seeing here. And I'm like, I know they're in this region. I know they're in this area.
Norfolk,
yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to attract them. And so I started there and kind of transformed. I like to say now I ended up kind of being an anti-lawn evangelist because I went from, having this grassy patch with trees to having it just covered with, flowers and herbs and fruit. So that's how it started, right in my front yard.
So were you trained in farming, or where did this come from, this desire, outside of the fact that you needed flowers for the wedding? But where did this desire come from?
So no, I wasn't trained, but I like to say I have informal training. My mom is from St. Lucia, where I spent a lot of time and partially grew up. And my grandmother kind of had the same thing. She was a teacher, but she had a lay floristry business on the side from her large garden. So I grew up seeing that, and then living in New York, I grew up as part of community gardens, children's gardens and the botanical garden. And so I always had my hands in the soil, was covered in dirt in one way or another. So I had that informal training. And then when I decided to start the business, I kind of cross-referenced what I already knew with, kind of books and research, and fell down the rabbit hole, and the rest is history.
There you go.
Yeah.
So where is Mermaid City Flowers? Tell us about it and how it works.
So my physical location is on Colley Avenue, 1701 Colley in Norfolk. I share a creative studio with an artist, an interior designer, jeweler, and photographer. But the plots that I grow on are in different places throughout the city of Norfolk. So I started out in my own front yard, and then my neighbor offered up growing space. And then people kept saying, well, hey, I have all this grass. I'm not doing anything. How about you, do it here? So I have everything from a waterfront plot in Colonial Place to Ward's Corner. So they're kind of different plots all throughout the city.
And these are with private homeowners.
They are, yes.
And they let you come on and grow. How do you determine what kinds of flowers you're going to grow?
So I use a variety of methods. One, I look at what does well in our region. It's also really important to me from an ecological standpoint to grow things that are native to this area. We know we have lots of problem with sea level rise and climate change, and so it's important to me to use my flowers as an educational tool, in part by growing things that are native to let people know what they can grow that might have low water usage needs or might be great for a rain garden. And so the flowers are also an educational tool. That's part of how I pick. I also like to use flowers or plants that are multi-purpose. So for instance, I grow like basil and rosemary. Those are herbs, right?
Right. I was going to say, everything that you grow is not necessarily flowering.
No. Yes, it's not necessarily flowering. There's foliage too.
Okay.
You need a little bit of everything to make a good bouquet. It's not just, the flowers themselves.
Right.
And so there are, a variety of categories that I use to kind of make the choices.
So you try to be as environmentally not conservative, but environmentally friendly as you can. And you use rain barrels and so forth. Do you have to use any other type of irrigation or?
So I don't use a whole lot of irrigation at this point. I focus heavily on having good soil quality. In fact, I'm about to get some compost dropped off on Sunday. I focus really on having good quality soil and kind of matching the plants to their specific soil environment, whether it's a shady area or, a dry area or a wet area, and kind of using things that can help to, mitigate or work around any challenges I might have. And I barely water anymore at this point. Occasionally,
so you just let nature do its thing,
I also try to really favor plants that don't have those, high requirements.
And your yard is also a monarch butterfly sanctuary. Did I hear that right?
Yes. So it's a way station because, like I said, originally I wanted to attract pollinators. I know, monarchs are endangered, and I wanted to be able to find a home or give a home to all the creatures in the garden. I like to say it's some for me and some for them. So I am not, for instance, at this time everybody's removing their leaves. I don't, because there are a lot of animals that overwinter in the leaves and use those, and insects use those as their homes until the first flowers are we're getting the first flowers again.
I was reading something where you were talking about mulch, because you use mulch to keep the weeds down.
Yes,
but it's not wood chips. I think I read it was a plant, something that you were planting.
I use strawberries.
That's
mulch.
What it was. Yes.
Because they are evergreen. They do really well here. They help to keep the soil cool and moist, and they help to keep the root systems together. And I mean, that you can't get much better than a ground cover or mulch cover that you can eat. Also, as an aside, like I said, I like to choose plants that are multi-purpose, and strawberries really fit the bill for that.
So the yards that where people allow you to come in and plant, I mean, are these like huge yards? Are they?
Some of them are larger, some are smaller. It just depends. Some are, half acre or acre properties, and I have, significant space, and some are smaller spaces, but they also have different needs. Like some might be shadier, so better for, one type of plant, and some is like one is like an open sunny meadow, so that's great for things that require a lot of sunshine. It's just, different, whatever the need is.
And the harvesting and all of that you do on your own?
I do all of that on my own. I am
really? Dee, seriously?
Yeah. So I really try to keep everything to about a 10 or 15 minute radius of my house, because that's another part of my sustainability ethos is, not driving an hour to, a farm or another area to harvest. And it makes it kind of easy to control when I know I can, let me just stop in here on the way. I can stop in and look and kind of keep an eye on plants as I go. I'm past the point of needing an employee, but we can talk about that in 2025.
2025.
Yeah.
There we go. As things continue to grow. So I would assume then that the arrangements that you make and so forth are very different depending on A, time of year, and B, what's growing.
For sure. It is super seasonal. So, for instance, right now we are going into hellebore or Lenten rose season, what people think of as like those flowers that overwinter. And my tulips, some of them aren't in the ground. They're staring at me right now with their little green buds, but those will be some of the first flowers starting in February here, February and March. And then as we go through the seasons, things change. Some things only bloom once, but then we have things that may bloom in the spring, and then again late in the fall they'll have a second flush. Yeah.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. What are your questions about growing flowers? For one, I have 4 plants in my house right now that are actually thriving, and it is amazing. Okay. Because I'm a flower killer.
I am too. I tell people I kill flowers all the time. We have a professional name for that. It's compost. That is what happens to those things. Okay. So don't feel like I never want people to feel like, oh, you're so great at this and you can do it. Everybody can do it. We just have, our different comfort or experience levels. But trust me, I have killed more things than anybody else will probably ever keep alive outside of farmers.
So when you when you put together a bouquet, what is the biggest thing that we do when we receive flowers that we shouldn't do in order to keep them alive and it's pretty for as long as possible? 2
things. One, putting the flowers in the window. I know you want to put the flowers in the window because you think they're beautiful there, but that heat is going to kill them a lot faster than anything else. That's one. And the second is not changing the water. Lots of bacteria forms in the water, and the best way to combat that is to change the water every 2 or 3 days, and then remove any leaves that are below the water line. That's the third thing.
And just cut those off.
Yes.
So, all right, we have a question from Liz in Chesapeake. She has a Venus flytrap that she'd like to put into a bigger pot, but she isn't sure it would shock the plant too much. Any advice?
I am not a Venus flytrap expert, but I would say to try to transition it. The biggest thing about repotting things is not going too large. Lots of times we think, oh, I need to put it into a much bigger spot and let the roots expand into that pot. If you're going to go up in size, do it,
gradually.
Do it gradually. The other thing I would suggest is maybe mixing in some of the soil from the existing pot in with the new pot as she moves it on. That's another thing to consider doing. Okay.
So I know that in addition to your working yourself and with Mermaid City Flowers, you also started a collective here in the Tidewater Collective.
Yes. So I started the Tidewater Flower Collective once I realized that there were other local growers here. Flower farming is a growing industry, and I, basically went on the internet like, hey, do you want to be friends with me? And people said, okay. And we formed a group. It's very informal. We have a group on Instagram. We are getting ready, hopefully in February, to have one of our members host. She does mostly dried flowers, and she's going to host a workshop for us in the studio. But it's also a great place to share resources, whether somebody wants to make a big order and could not necessarily afford it on their own. We can share costs. We say we're probably each other's biggest buyers, when we want to buy for an event and don't have X, Y, or Z flower in a color, a certain size, we can say, hey, are you growing this? I'm going to need this for an event, and that kind of thing. So that's really been great to have.
So if you're planning an event and so forth and you really want to use locally sourced flowers, is there a bigger, longer time frame to give you guys time to find them? Or how does it work any differently than what you would think of as a other florist?
Not really. So often for like big events like weddings or galas, that kind of thing, there is a fair amount of lead time. Like for weddings that I'm flowering next year in June, most of that stuff hasn't been planted yet, with the exception of things like hydrangeas and that kind of thing. So generally, that 6-ish months is a good lead time. But if you are flexible and, not married to color or style necessarily, you can usually have, local flowers pretty quickly, within a couple days, within a week for an event. Yeah.
What's the advantage
of local flowers? Okay, so one, the money stays in the community when you buy from a local grower. 2, you know what the source is. 80% of flowers purchased in the United States are grown overseas, and that actually came as a direct result of some policies by Ronald Reagan to try to incentivize countries in South America to grow legal flowers rather than growing the kind of products that they were growing. And so the market went from being mostly American grown to mostly foreign grown. They also don't have the carbon emissions that we associate with flowers being flown in from overseas. Places like South Africa, Protea is flown in every day on an airplane from South Africa. But you can get those American grown. They grow in California and Hawaii, for instance. So those are some of the advantages. It's better overall for the workers, the people who grow here. Often growers overseas are exposed to pesticides, to terrible working conditions, They don't make living wages, all those things we kind of think about with not just the floral industry, but agriculture and other industries as well.
Speaking of pesticides, do you use pesticides?
I don't. I am all organic, all natural. I favor using natural methods. Like in the spring, I'll release beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings at the start of the season to try to help combat pest problems I have. And because I have different growing spaces, I can make sure that I don't have monocultures. So I'm not going to put all of my tulips in one place. I can put them in different places. So hopefully that can help with pest management. And that's what I utilize.
So clearly you're not afraid of bugs.
No. No.
I have to tell you, because I'm laughing because I remember once when I first moved back to Hampton Roads after leaving for a couple of years, and I decided I was going to plant some flowers in the yard. And I went out and and a friend had given me a toolbox and the spade and all that, and I had my gloves, and I went out and I turned the earth over and I saw the earthworms and I turned it back over, and that was the end of my planting.
But that's good that you saw worms. That means that you had a healthy soil system.
Oh, well.
Now I won't act like if I don't see like a snake slithering around, I wouldn't be like, nope. But if I have snakes, that means that I probably don't have some of the pests that snakes eat, right? So it's better but sometimes I just have to take a step back, walk away. I'm like, I'll just come back in a few minutes. You do you.
You do you.
Yeah.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Are flower farmers and agricultural farmers, I guess that's a better way to say it, I don't know, food farmers,
yes,
you know
food,
what I mean?
yes,
fruit and food and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys are you all in kind of the same boat, or do you see each other differently? Are you accepted?
There's overlap. This was something I recently had a conversation with one of my groups, and there's overlap because there's some people who do both. Lots of food farmers will grow flowers as what we call like a value-added product, and so they're not totally unfamiliar. But flowers are seen as a luxury item, and sometimes there's an attitude of, well, that's not real growing. Well, guess what? If you didn't have flowers, there wouldn't be any of that food. So talk to me nice, as I would say. So yeah, there is overlap. There has been welcoming in the community, but then sometimes you have, you always have some naysayers regardless of what it is. But we're here. We've been doing this. We're going to continue doing this. In fact, Black growers, represent some of the oldest flower growers and flower sellers in the country, doing it literally for centuries.
And that's the way, because you also started the Black Flower Farmers group as a support group for Black flower growers.
I did.
Tell us about that organization and how you guys support each other.
So I started Black Flower Farmers as a way to amplify the voices of Black growers, to show that we are here, and to also help with some of the systemic barriers that we face. Like, access to land, access to capital. We don't have the intergenerational wealth and land access that lots of other farmers have. And we know that, like, post-Reconstruction, for instance, 16 million acres of Black farmland has been lost. The Great Migration meant people, leaving the farms in the South, to seek refuge in the Northeast or the Midwest. And so I really wanted to have a place where we could talk, convene, and talk about issues that affect us directly. And also, one of the farmers, Bima of Urban Buds, has said, there's a high cost of access to farming and to flower farming. And for us, we often don't have that. And so it's a great place to have that space. And also, we do fundraise. And one big thing we fundraise for is to have professional development. It's really a community and an industry where getting in front of people and talking to people helps you to gain not just new ideas and new insight, but also additional help for your business. So
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Mary Alice joins us on her way to Norfolk. Hello, Mary Alice. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. I'm enjoying this conversation today, and I have a proposition for your guest.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch her name at the top of the show.
Dee Hall.
But, hey.
Hello.
I don't know if you are interested in coming as far as Franklin, but I have an acre lot that is not doing anything except sitting there. And if you're interested, I would love to have you come and look at it and see if you want to plant flowers there.
Sure, I'd love
Mary
to come
Alice,
out and look.
that's fantastic.
It's so generous of you. I would love to come out and take
Mary
a look.
Alice is a major supporter of our show and has been with us for years and years. This is legit.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to come out and take a look, Mary Alice.
Mary Alice, what I will do is I will give her your number and I'll let you guys connect.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And y'all have a nice Christmas.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.
Happy holidays to you. Thanks for calling, Mary Alice. We appreciate it. Wow.
That's pretty fantastic. And I mean, that's the way that I've grown my business, through what we call community land sourcing. But part of it, I've had people reach out and say, hey, how you do it? You just do it. You have to be in the community. You have to be a member of the community. People have to see you out there and kind of see what you're doing and understand what it is you're doing. It's not just, somebody walks up to you like, hey, would you like this?
Right. Yeah.
So that's really important for me too.
That is fantastic. Let's see. Lynn joins us from Wachaprague. Yes. Hi, Lynn. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I love the show.
Thank
I have
you.
some questions for you about my milkweed, and I had a tachnid, if I'm pronouncing that right, fly invasion.
Oh, no.
I know. It decimated the chrysalis. I had bunches.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
It really is. And I thought if anybody would know what to do, you would. So I'm calling to get your advice. Please.
Well, I don't have any. I don't know about that specific attack. What I would suggest is contacting your local county extension. That is who all farmers, including flower farmers, go to when they deal with any kind of pest or disease that they are unfamiliar with. And they have experts, they're all through Virginia Tech, that can help you figure out what the problem is and how to solve it. And they are available anytime. At the county extensions, which also fund master gardeners, which a lot of people will be familiar with, they tend to be really good and really helpful and have those kinds of answers. So I hope that is helpful to you.
Yeah, she's on the Eastern Shore.
Yes.
So that would be really helpful. Does that help, Lynn?
It does. I think it was caused by the bark scale on my crepe myrtle.
Oh, no. Yeah, so that might be something that they would want to investigate and can help you figure out.
Okay. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you for the call, and happy holidays to you. So, do you get pushback from some in our community who may say, well, we don't want to go back to farming. We were relegated to that. We did that, and we're not doing that again.
I haven't gotten pushback specifically, but I know lots of people face that, especially younger people. Why are you doing that? Your grandmother and grandfather left the farm, XYZ. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to connect and reconnect. And I think in this increasingly digital age, people are looking for, things experiential and tangential. And what's more tangential than like having your hands in the actual soil?
Absolutely.
Tangible, rather. Yeah.
We have had our hands in the soil for generations and generations. Absolutely. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the beauty of gardens, locally sourced flowers, and the challenges Black flower farmers face as they farm their lands. My guest is Dee Hall, owner of Mermaid City Flowers, founder of Black Flower Farmers, and founder of Tidewater Flower Collective.
Yes.
There we go.
That's
I
right.
did get it right. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Sarah joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Sarah. You're on the air.
Hi. I tried growing flowers out of a pot on my apartment balcony, and I came out to find that some critter bit the top of the flowers right off the stem.
No.
Have any tips on how to prevent that?
We all deal with critters. I'd say I lost maybe like 1/10 of my tulips this year to dastardly squirrels who really liked eating the bulbs. But one thing you can do is when you see the buds starting to develop, flower farmers will sometimes use little gauze bags to cover the buds of the flowers. And that's something that you can do. Now, if it bites it off at the stem, there's nothing you can do about that. But you can also try growing flowers that have scents that critters do not enjoy, like, marigolds, for instance. And that can help keep them away. If you look it up, you can look up different types of flowers that repel certain types of creatures. But like I said, I have a some for me, some for them ethos, because I know I'm not going to get 100% of everything I grow. So try the gauze, or try, growing those flowers that have the scents that are not attractive to creatures, and hopefully that will help.
Thanks so much for the call. We appreciate it, Sarah. Happy holidays to you. Let's see. Let's go to Nicole in Smithfield. Hi, Nicole. You're on the air. Hi.
Nicole. I'm interested in growing a memorial garden in honor of my late son, Miles. When I started, it was just going to be a rose garden, so now, of course, I'm devastated because I'm trying to get started with this memorial garden, and I have no idea what to do. I'm interested in all of your expertise.
Well, I don't know if we have time for that kind of, walkthrough, but you can always get in contact with me via my website, via email, text message, phone call. I'm quite reachable, and we can go from there.
Your website.
And it's mermaidcityflowers.com. And I would be...
Absolutely. On second thought, if you're ever interested in growing, we live on a family farm, so we have acres and acres of land in Smithfield, so ever interested, you're welcome there too.
Okay, well, just reach out to me and we can go from there. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the call, Nicole. It looks like you can be doing some farming, lady.
Oh boy, I'm going to have to go ahead and add that. The farm of one is not going to cut it for much longer.
So I want to go back to Black flower farmers for just a moment. First of all, you have people in the collective who are from not only the United States, but also South Africa, England,
Canada,
across the board.
Yeah.
Are all of you all facing similar challenges, or are there different challenges depending on where where you're located?
I think there are different challenges depending on location, but I think the access tends to. So one of the Canadian farmers grows she grows at her home, like I do. So I think that is one of the continued barriers, regardless of location. And Sel, who's in the UK, is kind of like the only, or not the only, but one of few Black people there in the UK. There are, where she is, it's a flower farmer. And so there are a few there. But I mean, to put into perspective, Black farmers make up less than 2% of farmers. I think it's something like 1.4% of farmers in the United States. And Black flower farmers are even smaller. It's like something like, I don't know, 80 to 85 estimated.
Wow.
Farmers, Black
Really?
farmers, flower farmers in the U.S. Yeah.
85.
Yeah.
Less than 100.
Yeah. So there are about 6,000 flower farmers, or and that includes people who do grow bedding plants, who are in floriculture too. So not just flower farming, but bedding plants, and also, have nurseries and that kind of thing, anything related to flower growing and not just food. Yeah. So it's a very small number.
So I know that you have some others in Virginia,
Yes.
as well as North Carolina,
Yes.
Kentucky. Yeah, the list
Yeah,
goes on.
all
You have
over.
to go.
Yes.
You have to go on the website
Yes,
and check it out.
blackflowerfarmers.com has it's not a comprehensive listing, but I need to go ahead and update it and add a couple more people. But yeah, that's a place to go where you can find Black growers from across the country.
So when you're looking for grants, are the same grants and opportunities that are available to other types of farmers, are they also available to flower farmers?
It depends. So one of the farmers she always says, you don't know until you apply, because they don't specifically say, no, flower farmers can apply for this. So just apply and see. Right now is what we call grant farming season. So we are all in the group getting ready to apply for grants in the next couple months here. Right after my holiday shuts down, I'm going to be turning to my grant farming rather than my flower farming. So there are different opportunities that you don't know until you apply for. And some across the board, acquiring high tunnels or other just farm related equipment, or equipment generally speaking, will apply to all farmers. We have a national organization, the Association for Specialty Cut Flower Growers, which offers specific grants for research and education for flower farmers. And we tend to work really closely in conjunction with them.
Let's go back to the phone. Tom joins us from Currituck. Hi, Tom. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I'm a retired extension agent from North Carolina, and I'm curious if you're working with any 4-H youth, which might increase your workforce and help spread awareness and education among youth.
That's a good idea. We are not working, or I am not working with any 4-H youth, but that's a really great idea for an opportunity to help, bring younger people into the fold. That could be something. There is one grower, Southside Blooms in Chicago, who is an urban farmer, and all of the growers and florists in his organization are all young people from the South Side. So and there's another woman in Detroit that has a group that's youth-based. So there are some flower farmers that are working with youth, but the 4-H idea is a great one.
Thank you, Tom, for the call. We appreciate that. So let's talk to Cindy in Newport News. Hi, Cindy. You're on the air.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. So my name is Cindy Rosa, and I am in the process of opening a small grocery store in Newport News, Virginia, in an area that is considered a food desert. And I would love to ask Ms. Lee if she would consider selling her flowers in our market.
Yeah, I'd love to. Again, you can get in contact with me through my website, email, phone call.
Okay.
And yeah, I would absolutely love to do that.
As a matter of fact, Barry's telling me that we have your contact information, Cindy. So we'll make sure we connect the two of you going forward. Oh, this is very, very cool.
Yeah.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So are we going to take number 4? Okay. Dominique joins us from Hampton. Hi, Dominique. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you doing?
Okay.
I was just calling because I'm a hobbyist gardener, flower farmer in Hampton, Virginia, and I was just calling to find out, I guess, if you have mentoring or any type of like programs that help hobbyists or just people more interested in cut flower gardening and things of that nature.
So I don't have any formal mentorship programs, but one of the things that we are aiming to do with Black flower farmers, in addition to providing the professional development, is kind of developing a more formal way of mentorship. But again, if you get in contact with me, I'm happy to, assist. Sometimes I will have like open farm days where people can come and weed. They learn to prune. They learn to plant XYZ. A lot of people who do work that's very stationary are really interested in getting outdoors and spending time outside. And it's a good way to do that. And usually I have plants and or flowers that I'm constantly giving away. And I love meeting new people and the opportunity and kind of expanding the abilities to have more local growers. Yes, please come to the dark side or the floral side, as the case may be.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dominique. We appreciate the phone call. So it's the holiday season. People are doing centerpieces and doing different types of decorations. My neighbor, we live in a condo building and people give small gifts, and my neighbor took some holly and some other greenery from her daughter's yard, and she put them in a jar with a bow around it, and it's the cutest little centerpiece.
Yes. Yeah.
Any suggestions on things that we can do?
Yeah, well, you just touched on it. Winter greenery is big, right? And it's everywhere. I will even go to, Christmas tree stands, and I'm just like, hey, you're not using that cut off greenery, right? Can I have it? Yes, they're not going to turn you away. So you can use that to create your own wreaths, to create your own swags, even things that people might not think about. Lots of people have hydrangeas in this area. Those dried flower heads hold beautifully. You can cut them off and use them for non-traditional arrangements, but look around you. I also use pine cones and magnolia pods. I just give them a little wash with vinegar and a little soap and water, and then I put them in the oven to dry, like on low heat. I take orange slices, do the same thing, put them in the oven on low. There's all kinds of creative ideas that you can use without having flowers necessarily, with just using greens and texture and what's already existing in the environment to create something, beautiful. And then you can always just throw a velvet bow on it, and voila, you've got your holiday centerpiece.
Well, that's because you're creative, Dee.
But the internet is there to help guide you through it. You can look at ideas and say, just whatever, easy winter floral arrangements or whatever it is. And there's tons of things, especially all over social media, easy ideas. I promise you can do it. I promise.
Now, the next major flower holiday, yes.
Valentine's Day. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Any suggestions?
So I host workshops, and I will be hosting workshops. I will be hosting a couples Valentine's Day workshop, so that's fun. Bring your boo. I'll bring my husband, and you can see us, interact and make an arrangement together. But I also do one that I say it's for Galentines, Palentines, and anybody else. So bring your friends, come and hang out. And so I will be doing those workshops. I have also recently acquired a teeny tiny little flower truck. Her name is Sprout, and I'm hoping she'll be up and running for Valentine's Day, and I will hopefully be spreading the floral love wherever I go. I can get American-grown flowers, even if they're not local, even though we will have some local flowers already. And so I really like to focus on that.
Do roses do well here?
Roses do really well here. We get generally 2 flushes. In fact, roses do so well here. Did you know that the Norfolk Botanical Garden, the Rose Garden, is on a postage stamp. That's how well they do here. So they do really well here. We tend to have roses in the spring and then again in the fall. So yes, they absolutely do well. The main thing you have to watch out for is some of the diseases that roses can get, but they do well here.
Does the botanical garden serve as kind of an inspiration to you too, knowing the history
it
and
does.
who planted?
So I am on
garden?
the PCID committee, one of the committees at the Botanical Gardens that is kind of responsible for the WPA, the Works Progress Administration event every year, where we honor the men and women, 220 African-American men and women that were the creators of the Norfolk Botanical Garden. It's the only WPA botanical garden in the country, and a lot of people don't know about that history. So it is a really special place for me as somebody who grows to think about the conditions that they faced and then the discrimination. So these people built a garden and often did not share with their families because they were not allowed to enter the garden for decades following the building of that garden. So it's a really interesting history and legacy. And I will say this because we are always looking to find more names. We have 76 names of those 220. If you, a family member, or anybody you know was involved or had a family member who was one of those gardeners, we would love to be in contact with you. Please do be in contact with Nate Cody at the Botanical Garden, and we would love to have that information.
Yeah, because they really have made a concerted effort to let people know the true history behind what's been going on there.
For sure.
That's fantastic. Do you have a favorite flower?
All of them? No, whichever one I'm looking at the time. No, I like to say I love dahlias and ranunculus, which ranunculus grow in the spring and dahlias are more summer and fall flower because they both have so much variety. So I love any flower that can be a very single form, from single petals to being super floriferous and can look like different things, have different colors, shapes, and textures. So those are two of my absolute favorites.
Now, I understand you have children, and are they gardeners too?
So my youngest is a gardener. She likes to say she's a junior florist, and, she's kind of come up in it. She knows how to, set up a market tent. She knows how to cut stems. She had a botany class this fall. You couldn't tell her nothing. I was like, I know she's the most annoying kid in the class. Sorry in advance. But yeah, so in the other ones, everybody will be home for the holiday surprise. We will all be shoveling compost as a family, just what you came home for. Presents and shovels.
Get ready for it.
Yeah.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Neil joins us from Suffolk. Hi, Neil. You're on the air. Neil?
Hey, how are you?
Okay, how are you?
Yes, I'm doing well.
Good.
I have a question about two peace lilies. One is doing okay. One from a friend is a really sickly peace lily. What do you do to get a peace lily that was beautiful when you got it, but is kind of not so thick now?
Is it inside or is it outside? Is it a houseplant?
Yes, it's an inside peace lily.
Well, what is the specific thing? Because there are different things that can be. I was telling Barbara, I think a lot of times people overwater, and that can be the biggest thing. But if you have two of the same plants and one is not doing well, I would kind of inspect the soil a little closer and see if maybe there are some kind of insects or mites or something that you might not be seeing that's causing those conditions specifically.
Well, that's my friend's. His is, he probably has bugs all over his head. But mine is in my office, and it was from a funeral, and it was beautiful. And then now it's green, but it's just not as thick as it used to be. And I know that may be one of those plants that it likes to have more of a constricted pot. I don't know if I need to put it in a larger pot, or whether you fertilize the peace lily.
I mean, the answer is it really depends. Without seeing the plant, it's hard for me to, diagnose it and say what it might be. But your best bet would probably be to go online and type in whatever the specific conditions are that you're noticing and go from there.
And they should be able to give you some help from there.
Yes.
And the other person, he needs an exterminator, and he's probably sitting outside answering phones for you right now.
Oh.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Okay, Neil. Thanks so much for the call.
Throw him under the bus.
Absolutely. Throw him under the bus. Oh, gosh. So you were telling me before the show started that you are going to a conference that I was asking if flower farmers and regular farmers interact together and so forth. And you made a statement that when you said that this is a specialty or considered a luxury.
Yes.
Flowers are considered a luxury.
Flowers are considered a niche item even within, the growing community. Yes.
So we don't need beauty. We just need sustenance.
Right.
Is that what that comes down to?
Right. I like to think flowers provide both, and it's part of why I tend to use lots of, edibles in my arrangements or plants that are multi-purpose. I use lots of heritage plants I grow as well. Like one is Lego spinach, so the leaves are edible, and then the flowers I obviously use in my arrangement fresh, and they also dry really well. So I want, like I said, the education portion is big for me too, so people can see, yes, you can have this. It can be beautiful and useful, which flowers are. They're not just about providing beauty, right? They provide nutrition for everything around us and make sure that we have food to eat. Y'all wouldn't have those vegetables you want to grow with if the vegetables didn't flower. Everything
right,
flowers,
everything
right?
flowers. Yeah. So, and your husband does arrangements.
Well, he tries. He he could probably use one of my workshops, but yeah.
Well, at least he's interested. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. He's good. Yeah, he's good at. When we first met, he's like, "Well, I have a butterfly garden." And I was like, "Oh, that's nice." And he said later he was like so embarrassed. I'm like, "Look, I don't plant or flower shame anybody. We all, we have what we have. We do what we can with what we've got, and that's that."
So if someone wants to just start growing something in their yard, they have a little bit of space or they have a balcony, what do you suggest they do to get started?
Just start. Go out. I think a lot of times we can be paralyzed and feel like we need to have the perfect conditions, etc. There are no perfect conditions, or if you have perfect conditions, nature will quickly come along and knock those away, right? Get a pot, get your planting medium, get your seeds or your starts, as the case may be, and get started. The most important thing, I think, is not overwatering and then making sure that whatever plant it is has enough light. Like in my studio right now, I have some basil. Again, I popped into a little bud vase after an event and it rooted. And so now I have a basil plant growing inside my studio. And as far as I'm concerned, it's an experiment. I'm just going to let it keep going and see what it does. But that's part of the cool part for me, the cycle from growing something from seed to vase, and then it's starting on a brand new cycle, from the last plant that it was on.
So when you talk about overwatering, because I think that's what my problem is, outside of the leaves just
yellowing
falling
or
off
getting
and yellow,
yes.
and so forth. I mean, how do you know when you've watered too much?
Those are the main things. So I think a lot of people tend to water from a watering can, but what I suggest is actually taking your pot and putting it into, a shallow dish with water or putting in a sink that has water, and that way the plant will drink as much as it needs. And then when you lift it up, you'll feel it's a little bit heavier than the shriveled, dried mess it was before. And then that plant has enough to drink. And I tell people always talking about all these, I water my plants at home once a week. Yeah. Once a week. Everything. I have orchids. I have African violets. I have lots of houseplants I collect. Once a week.
You got an orchid to stay alive.
Oh, I've been keeping them alive. I know. They're blooming like twice a year now. That is forget anything else. That is my proudest accomplishment.
Wow. So now you were talking about your family doing compost.
Yes.
Do you get compost from different places or do you make it yourself?
I do a combination. So there is a great farm here in Virginia Beach, a great organization called Drishti Compost. It's owned formerly by Farmer John. They make beautiful compost that has biochar and all these nutrients in it. So for bigger spots, I will get that trucked in. But I also create my own compost, which is pretty easy to do. I also used to raise worms, so I could use worm castings. I no longer do that. I know you're afraid of the worms, but I used to do that as well, because you can make something called like a worm tea that is a really good nutrient for soil. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you do your own composting if somebody's interested?
Yeah, so you can get there's barrels or containers that you can get, which is probably the best way. You can do them in like open containers, but I mean, here in Norfolk, we have everything from like raccoons to red foxes, so you might not want to have something that you can have open.
Yeah.
You need a combination of different materials. You know, you need brown and you need green, and the space for it. But you can do small amounts too. I mean, I've seen smaller containers that you can have like indoors on, say, a countertop. And again, master gardeners and our county extension, which yes, we have, even though we're in Norfolk and we're urban, can help you get started on that. And I think may even offer classes in that sort of thing for people looking.
Okay, so Lisa, our producer, says she is interested in that worm tea. She wants to know more.
Okay, so I can give her all the details afterwards, but it's basically like, so there are different things you can use that have really weak nitrogen and potassium, but offer really great nutrients to the soil. You can also grow things, like I grow comfrey, and then I take the leaves, I put them in a 5-gallon barrel, let them sit for a couple weeks till they stank, and then strain out the liquid, and that it makes a great fertilizer for plants. You can do things like collect leaves. I collect leaves in the fall. Everybody puts out their bag leaves, and then I go, yay! I just grab them all, take them to my house, poke some holes in the bag, make sure they're a little bit damp, and within about a year, those break down into what we call leaf mold, mould, and that makes a great soil conditioner as well. There are lots of easy ways to add more sustainable or healthy practices to your gardening without having to, go out and buy a million things or do a million things. These things have existed for centuries in this way and still work.
Why do I have the feeling that your garage does not garage your car?
No. Yeah, no. It's just
if you've got bags.
Nope. It's all, it's leaves. I have leaves on the side of the house, and then I have containers. I start plants in like my shed. There's, it's just all tools and plants and dried stuff and, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot happening.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So we've got about a minute left. Last minute advice to people in terms of flowers overall. What do you want to tell us?
Buy local. There are easy ways to find local flowers. You can go to my website. You can go to Black Flower Farmers. There is also localflowers.org that can help you find local sourcing and think about it not just for your food, right? Like we go to farmers markets because we want to get those things that are fresh and locally grown. Well, we want the same for our flowers too, if we can help it. And it's not an all or nothing proposition. Start where you are. Again, I'm not here to judge anybody's choices on XYZ, just trying to help you make some different choices that, not only are better for you, but also better for your community.
And do you come to farmers markets?
I was doing farmers market last year, but this year I am next year I'm going to be popping up with Sprout, my little flower truck, and place to place, and I'll probably have that on my website and across social as to where we'll be and what we'll be doing.
Tell us the website one last time.
mermaidcityflowers.com.
Thank you so much, Dee Hall. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
And we hope that this show has been giving you inspiration and that you will shop locally for flowers the next time you want to make someone smile. Listen to this show or any of our Another View broadcasts at anotherviewradio.org, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. The Another View crew is taking some time off for the holidays. We wish the very best for you and your family this holiday season. So on behalf of Lisa, Jordan, Barry, and myself, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year. I hope I got them all. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Enjoy the holidays, everyone, and we'll get together again soon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.